Welcome, brave souls, to another story that will send chills down your spine and make you question the world around you. Have you ever felt that eerie sensation that someone is watching just beyond your sight? A shadow in the corner of your eye. A faint knock when no one is there. The feeling that you're not as alone as you think. Tonight, we dive into a story that lingers in that unsettling space between reality and nightmare. So dim the lights and listen closely. Let's begin. Jacob had always been a man of routine. Living alone in a small, weathered house at the edge of town, his days were predictable and mundane. He worked from home as a freelance writer, and the quiet, rainy evenings were often his favorite, until the rain started to bring someone. It began subtly one night as the rain fell steadily. Jacob heard a faint knocking at his window. He dismissed it as a branch or a stray gust of wind. But as the days passed, the sound became more deliberate, almost rhythmic. At first it was just one or two knocks, barely noticeable over the rain. Then it grew louder, more persistent. On the fifth night, curiosity got the better of him. He approached the window and peered out into the rain-soaked yard. Nothing. Just the dense fog curling around the trees and the steady downpour obscuring everything. But as he turned away, he saw it. A faint silhouette in the distance, standing completely still. The figure was facing him, though its features were impossible to discern through the rain. The next evening, the knocking returned, and this time the silhouette was closer. Jacob tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a prank or someone lost in the rain. But deep down he felt a crawling unease. The figure didn't move like a person. It didn't shuffle, stumble, or sway. It simply appeared closer and closer each night. Jacob started locking his doors and windows obsessively, but even that didn't stop the knocking. One night, the sound came from the back door, then the front, then all the windows, one after another, as if the figure was circling his house, testing every entrance. But when Jacob dared to look, it was never there, only the silhouette, always in the yard, always watching. The storm stretched on for days, relentless, and with each passing night, the figure came closer. Jacob began noticing small, inexplicable things in his house. A chair slightly moved, the smell of damp earth in his living room, and wet footprints leading nowhere. He couldn't explain how they got there, but the figure had never been closer than the yard, until one night when the knocking came from inside the house. It was faint at first, like someone scraping their fingers against the walls. Then it grew louder, erratic. Jacob grabbed a flashlight and searched every room, but there was no one visible at least. The air in his house felt thick, oppressive. He could hear the rain outside, but it was muted and distant, like he was submerged underwater. As he stood in the hallway, flashlight trembling in his hand, he heard it breathing, slow, deliberate, and just behind him. Spinning around, Jacob saw nothing, but the air felt colder, and the breathing didn't stop. He fled the house that night, driving to a nearby motel, but even there the rain followed. While Jacob was inside his motel room, the knocking started again, and when he looked out the motel window, the silhouette was there, standing in the parking lot under the flickering streetlight. He couldn't explain it to anyone. How do you describe a presence that only manifests in the rain? How do you fight something you can't even see? He tried leaving town, driving for hours, but the rain always caught up with him. And when it did, the silhouette would be there, waiting. For days he refused to sleep. But exhaustion is cruel. It dulls fear, replaces it with something worse, inevitability. At some point, Jacob realized this wasn't something he could outrun. It wasn't tied to his house. It was tied to him. So he did the only thing that made sense anymore. He stopped running. He returned home, not because he was brave, but because he had no other choice. If it was going to take him, it would happen whether he was in a motel, a car, or his own bed. At least here he could face it. When it came, he sat by the window watching the figure approach. He didn't lock the doors or close the blinds. He just waited, staring into the rain-soaked night. The last thing Jacob remembered was the silhouette standing just outside his window. Its featureless face whispered something so faint he couldn't understand it. It resonated deep within him, a sound that was more a feeling than a word. When the neighbors finally checked on him, they found the house empty. His car was still in the driveway. His belongings untouched, but Jacob was gone. The only clue was a set of wet footprints leading from his chair to the front door and out into the rain. And now, whenever the rain begins to fall, whispers of eerie knocking haunt the town. Soft taps at windows, always accompanied by the unsettling feeling of unseen eyes upon you. Some swear they've glimpsed a shadowy figure through the downpour, unmoving and patient, as if waiting for an invitation to step closer. Others say they've woken in the dead of night to the sound of slow, wet footsteps, circling their homes, never rushing, never hesitating. And a few claim they made the mistake of opening their doors. None of them will say what they saw, only that ever since, the rain never sounds the same. If this story sent chills down your spine and left you wanting more, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Whispers in the Dark. Your support helps me bring you more spine-tingling tales that keeps the darkness alive. Until next time, stay curious and stay brave.